I'm going to do a super fast tutorial of what I call making it pretty. I don't know if there's any better term for it in Word documents. In this brief tutorial, I'm going to do what my students often call making it pretty, where I just take a regular Word document and take it from kind of the bland academic standard that we all sort of have been trained to follow and make it look like something that I would be okay sending to someone else to use in class or to download or something like that. In particular, this one is a case that one of my students wrote in an independent lab with me, and it's wonderful, and it's something that we want to feature in a special collection. But if it's something that we're hoping that other people will use either with their own students or students will use to learn more about something, I'd like it to look just a little bit more polished. So because of that, I'm going to do my making it pretty on it, and I just wanted to show you guys what that looks like because I get asked about it a lot. So first, I want to tell you, if you are a U of A student, or even if you're not, if you're a student anywhere, please be taking advantage of getting cheap to free software that you can get. For example, I think in the U of A bookstore you can find out about what software you have a license for as a U of A student. And warning, whatever. But slow. Um, but I just want to show you, oh, it pushed me to faculty staff because I'm not a student. Anyway, if you were an active student, it would show you here the things that you could get, that you could buy, and what price they would be, and how inexpensive they might be, and things like that. For me, I can get Adobe, I can get quite a few other things. Ooh, what's Whitebook? Anyway, so and and there's a bunch more. This is just showing me most popular right now. But same thing for you. Some of my students really take to mapping and things like that. There's great Microsoft software for mapping that you can get a hold of called Visio for really advanced high-level mapping. And it's really, I think it's pretty simple to use, but some people think so or don't. But just so you know, that's where you can go. Plus, if you find that you have an outdated version of Word, you can go and get an updated one through this kind of process as a student. In our case, this student had sent me this file, and I believe they had a probably 2010 Word, and I think I'm in 2013. So I had to go to the info page for the document and click the convert button to bring it up to the current version of Word. And I'm working in this one. If you're working in a different one, it should have all of the options that I'm using today. They're just going to be in a different place. So just keep that in mind. So first things first, again, this is a perfectly serviceable, wonderful assignment, but if I want it to look a little better, there's a couple of things I can do really quickly. First things first, a cover page on something like this always makes it look a little nicer. So that one I think we find under Insert here. And I tend to like integral, but it doesn't really matter. Just don't pick one with lots of black if you think people might be printing it. So it comes with a little picture. So we're going to right click that picture and click change, because I don't think toxic leadership is trees in particular. And I believe in this case he talks about Marissa Mayer, who I'm not sure how to spell her name, but her face will probably come up. You do have to kind of be careful about licensing of photos and things like that. So if you need to check to see if something's licensed under Creative Commons, you might prefer to go to Google and do a Creative Commons license search for your picture. But since this is clearly a promotional Yahoo photo of Marissa Mayer, we're probably okay. So if you wanted to be a stickler, which is a good idea, you could do it another way, but we're just gonna do this way for now. So then I right clicked again on this picture and clicked format, and that's gonna give me options to kind of make it look a bunch of different ways, and I could color correct or do some other things to it. The other option is way up here. Now you see these little context menus come up as I'm looking at a picture, so I can also click format there, and I would be able to change the size, do all kinds of things to it, but I like the quick styling options. They let me pick if I want to add little borders, if I want it to move, whatever. And again, don't get cutesy. But at the same time, like this one, it's a little blurry to begin with, sort of, so it kind of looks like it could use either blurred edges or it could use some kind of framing around it, and perhaps that would help. And in this case as well, we might want to sharpen the photo because it's a little bit dull. And now we've got our little photo. So Down here, you see his original page, and then up here, ours. Um, and so we could change this, and then here. I believe this was kind of a mini case, but I believe that's what Harvard case studies would call it, even though I think it's quite full-fledged. We'll go ahead and put it here like this. And as you can see, I'm really just moving information around, and for the most part, I won't retype anything else in this whole thing. I just have to retype the cover page. Up here, it of course has mistakenly identified me as the author because I'm doing this in my version of Word. And I don't like that about title pages, that it has all of these little defined areas, but whatever. We're going to just fix that. I didn't write much of it, but I helped. Let's ditch course. That doesn't really make sense for us. Let's also try to move this down a little bit. And for the abstract for his, there isn't really an abstract for this particular case, but we could here note what this is or why it was completed this way. And that's great. That gives us our attribution, everything like that that's important for us. And I would like to see some spacing in here. It's not giving it to me by nature, but let's see if I can. There we go. So I hit the end button and was able to get that separated out to give me a little space. And I think that looks better, pretty quickly. If you don't like something, not too hard to change. You just go and do your normal thing with figuring out how you want to change it. And I may come back and finagle that just a tiny bit more, but that's a good quick start to getting a change done for that. So then in this case, obviously this page we no longer need. And I'm just going to, looks like page breaks weren't used, instead spacing was, so I'm just going to back up my spacing until this little guy's at the top. Very nice. Okay, now, next thing you can do is just, in this case, we're going to go to design. We're just going to pick one that we like. So, basic elegant, basic simple, basic stylish. Let's go with that, right? We're going to click that and ask it to format it. So you can see it went ahead and changed my fonts, which I think is great. I'm happy with that. You can also do a bunch of different things. You can pick your color scheme to swap it out. You can pick your font scheme if you don't like the one that it picked for you. You can pick your overall spacing. Remember though, we just picked a whole theme, so it might compete effects, whatever. You can do all kinds of stuff. Don't get crazy. Like, my whole point of this was to make it really simple and kind of easy for us to do, and that's why we went to design and just picked a theme. So then if we go home, oh, and I think you can do themes over here too. So like if we felt like this, if we picked integral, that it would match our theme choice of our, main page better, sure, fine, right? And maybe in this case, since Yahoo's purple, we could find a purplish something. Ugh, I don't think I can handle purple. Anyway, all right, so then we go back here, and I don't know if I like integral either. It's just a little small. Yeah, 10.5 font is a little ridiculous. So I'm just going to go, I'm going to click back and set it back to what I had. I just used undo. Anyway, so then let's go home, and over here you'll see your styles. Okay, so that's the advantage of what we just did. You can use design to set your themes and whatever, and then it's going to provide you with styles to apply to things. Styles are also a really good idea to use because if someone does use a screen reader because they're blind and they're trying to read your document or whatever, these communicate to them the order of your document and help them navigate through it. So it's really nice to just get used to using these, because I think in the future that we're going to all be forced to learn a little bit about that. So in this case, we wouldn't say that this is the title because we already had a title on the title page, but this would be a heading 1. So it's going to, your theme provided you with a theme of headings here, and if you change your colors, these will change with it, etc., etc. So we can just pick heading 1 for our heading. Decide if you want things indented or not. A lot of times I see them not indented in in lots of businessy type documents. Doesn't matter. We're not doing APA format clearly except for our references. All of our references are definitely in APA perfect format because that is used in the business world. But we are using kind of a standard formatting for everything else, which I think is nice. So in this case, these are heading twos because they're part of, or that brief background is definitely part of the intro, but it looks to me like we might need to think about what these other headings were intended to be. So that's all I really have to scroll up and down and do is remove some of this, decide what these headings are. Brief background would be a heading 2 for sure. Leadership isn't all about the leader though. It looks like it's actually an additional section. So it's going to be heading 1. And then we talk about some specifics. So I think that will be heading 2. Same thing here, no headings here. Again, you can find, if you want to jazz up your formatting, you can find other things. Like here, there's a pretty long quote, so you might choose to set that out as a quote or emphasize that in some way. And again, since we're not following perfect APA, however you do this, it's just based on visuals. Just don't mess with your references and mess with those at all. So in this case, we might want to emphasize that, which makes it stand out and is really cool. Subtle emphasis, intense emphasis, whatever. We could set it as a quote, which is just going to italicize it for us, basically. We could make it an intense quote, which is kind of neat because all of a sudden it really stands out in that text from everything else that's there. Yeah, this particular CEO used a lot of really nasty language, and that was part of what she was known for. So there's some naughty words in here. Um, anyway, so we'll move on. And down here, a further reading section is clearly like just a complete aside, but it's just for people if they want to read more. So we'll make that one a heading 3, right? So then Marissa Mayer and change management is a whole different section because we're talking about a whole different type of leadership and what's going on with that. And in fact, looking at this, and this is the big key, just kind of look at stuff, Ooh, we do have a fancier quote down here. So maybe for this one, we don't do it that way. And this is exactly how I do this. I'm not, I don't think it all out and kind of make it ahead of time. I just kind of run through the paper and when I'm done and say, okay, what do I want to do with this? How do I want this to look in the end? Did I like that? Do I like this? Oh, I found something next. Let's go ahead and change that. This one instead might be the one that we make an intense quote. But I don't like it there. It was centered. So instead we'll make it justified. That looks really kind of cool. So that's what we're doing there. And this one we'll make a heading 3. Like we talked about before. This one is a whole nother section, so it's our final section, so it's a heading 1, and nice of it to fix the spacing. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. When you do set headings, it will allow you to collapse things or whatever, which can be kind of neat if you just want to compare all of your headings one to another. But it is a little confusing the first time. In this case, I don't think we have to have the references on a separate page. If you're not sure how those are separated, like in this case we have a page break, remember to use your little paragraph button to show that stuff to make it easier to delete. So in this case, this is a heading 1 as well. Very nice. We can clear that weird spacing issue, and those look perfect. Very nice. We used Zotero on this one because it has a really nice word add-in. It takes a little bit to get used to how to use it, but it will just kind of take care of your references to some extent for you as long as you have them saved separately. So if you're curious how we did those and made them look really good, that's what we did. So then I just double check and relook one more time. Like I said, this can be where it's kind of cool if you want to shrink everything so that you see what your headings look like, and if you think that they're making sense and that you've got a really sensical order, you can do that through here. Like it almost seems like this one maybe needs another heading, this little area. And thinking about, do we think this is going to make a really nice, just the case, do we have a good flow? Do we think this is going to make a nice PDF when we're finished? I think so. To me, I'm looking at it, I feel like our margins are really wide and we have a lot of spacing. I'm just not sure. I know that for an actual APA thing, we would want a lot of space like this, but I feel like maybe we don't for this, for a handout that's probably going to be used in classes or whatever. So maybe we'll go to paragraph spacing, and I know that that's what it shows, but you can go switch it up. So in that case though, you probably want to make sure that you have gone home first, selected all, and then you can go back to design, paragraph spacing, and I think we're going to pick compact and see if that helps. It didn't seem like it did much to me, which means sometimes you have to go to paragraph then and kind of choose, that's what it is. So I think here it was set on 2, and so the 2 were competing. So then you can kind of just click through them and see what you think. 1.15 seems a little too small, so let's just do 1.5. That I think looks better. So now it's just a little more, it's tighter, which looks good. It isn't putting spaces between the paragraphs though, and if we removed that kind of inset, that doesn't look as great. So then I think we'll just select all again, and in this case, add spaces before our paragraphs, and that really sets out our headings and makes sure that our paragraphs are separated by a space. So that's all I do. I just sit with a document, I kind of play with it a little bit. The reason these are all showing up gray is because we played with things and they're formatted differently. Yeah, so I just want to make sure it all looks good and that I'm happy with it. And it's something I would send to other people, which I think now it definitely is. It looks really nice. Final thing for it, because I think it's readable, clean, and attractive at this point. We could go back to design or to page layout as well and check our margins. These feel really wide to me, yeah, and they are. They're 1.25. 1 is standard at this point. So I went ahead and fixed those, turned those down a notch, which spreads things out a bit. It's also good, for these kinds of things if it's going to be a handout to be shorter if you can through formatting. So even though I know I added an entire cover page, still now it's a little shorter, so it's about 8 pages, which I think is nice. It can be nice to add page numbers and things like that to it, which you can always do through your, I think in this case that's back under design now, or insert. They have kind of moved things around, which is kind of annoying. Yeah, so you can header, footer, page number, do all that kind of stuff. There's a few other things that you can do that I'm just going to point out really quickly, even though I'm not really going to use them much on this document. You can add text boxes, which in this kind of situation can be really neat. So you can add different sidebars. Again, they have them themed, so you can pick a theme and then pick sidebars that go with your theme, or pick, inserting quotes that match your theme that you picked and that kind of stuff. So in this case, we could pick an integral quote or an integral sidebar, and it would format that really nicely, like on this particular page. So we could call out about something if we felt like we needed to, or this would be a really neat spot too, since this one is about Yahoo over a certain period of years, to have a timeline or something like that. You could do that in your sidebar. It just adds visual interest and makes it a little more attractive and more fun to use this case, which makes people more likely to learn from it. I'm also not in love with this particular green, so I might go play with, the theme colors in a minute or something like that. What else can you do? There's some other neat things you can insert. Auto text and stuff I don't really use. If you need some text to stand out, you can do word art. I never do that. You can do drop caps or margin caps, which is journalism does it. So you can add dates, whatever, symbols, all that kind of stuff if you need to. The text boxes. The other thing that they have added, which I do think is kind of interesting, besides pictures, tables, shapes and charts and screenshots and all the basics. You can insert online video now, but it doesn't seem to work very well. But you can do what's called smart art now, and this has gotten kind of interesting. It used to be really sad, but now it works pretty well. So if you do smart art, it gives you a ton of different options. It can be a pain to sort of format, but if you do need something like this or want to show something like this about a particular company, it's great. And there's no better way to do it. And you don't have to go create your own fancy thing. You can just do it here. Some of them will even integrate pictures. So like this one, it would show different pictures in a grid if you needed to. Or this one shows call outs with pictures. So you could call out from a photo of different things that you feel like are important. Continuous picture list, So there's the picture accent list. So perhaps we could explain the different leaders because we've got Bart's and we have Marissa Mayer, and we could show their differences in a list that has something like this. So these kinds of things are really great for visual interest. If you're doing any kind of executive summary, these can be exceptionally helpful. Executives really like you to sum things up for them. That's why they hired you usually, because they hired you to look into it and present the results as clearly and cleanly and quickly understandable as you can. Pictures often are faster to understand than giant blocks of text, right? It's good for organizational charts, for processes, lists, all kinds of stuff. So I encourage you to try those as well and to play with them. I'm not going to show you all the little options with them, but there are a ton. I'll show you like one really quickly. Let's just toss boxes in. So again, you'll get something like this. You're always going to get a context menu if you go up here to the top for it. And that gives you the option to play with just this word art, to do all kinds of stuff. You can move things around. I like the text pane. It gives you the text so that you can copy paste into it to put it here. Moving your stuff, you can change the colors, and these will always match your theme. So again, that's why theming is good instead of changing stuff individually, because this will make sure that it matches whatever your theme is, or that you can use the accent colors in your theme. Over here, these are the styles, so you can click down and get different styles for whatever you're doing. Again, I caution you, simple is better. I usually don't do too much with this. Formatting, you can change the way the text looks, you can change the exact shapes, make things larger and smaller, change the way outlines look, etc., etc. I tend to do the things that affect everything, something like this, so that it's one quick click. To do what I need to do, and then I'm done. And that's just food for thought on how to make a document that's kind of fancy looking, but really took you next to no time at all to make it fancy, and to add a few bells and whistles that will impress your audience and make a beautiful, beautiful presentable document that you would be happy to show off to other people. So in this case, the next thing that we would do also, you really typically want to save things as a PDF before you send them to others if you've done any kind of styling like this, because if they have 2010 and not 2013, it won't look the same on their computer. So it's a really good idea to send your kind of finalized version as a PDF. So you should be able to go in here and save as PDF. And mine says it needs to do some things before it will let us do that. But then it should give you that option. It should save as a PDF just fine. You can open it, double check that things look the way you want. You can protect it, whatever. And then send out your PDF and always have your fancy document to edit for yourself later. Yeah, so I know that seemed long, but it's because I showed you a few things that I don't normally even deal with. But that you might be interested in knowing about. And of course, there's a lot more that this can do for you. In particular, like I said, with references, it can do all of that for you actually now. Though I still use Zotero for mine. It can do captions, tables of figures, all kinds of stuff, tables of contents, great, whatever. There's more to page layouts if you want to play with those things, columns, how your hyphenations work, how your line numbers work. There's so many things, but for me, I typically just use a little bit of theming, and if I need to, a little bit of extra styles to make things fancy. And people are normally pretty happy with it. So I wish you very good luck in your documents and in making it pretty in the future.